Hello and welcome to The Art of Aging, part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we take a look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that challenge, encourage, and inspire all to age with abundance. Today, we are pleased to welcome Erhardt Preitauer. Erhardt is president and CEO of CareSource, an industry-leading multi-state, multi-plan, government-sponsored healthcare organization that is truly reimagining the way healthcare can be delivered in this country. Erhardt joined CareSource in 2018 following his role as CEO of Horizon New Jersey Health, which is the state's largest Medicaid plan. This followed previous leadership positions at Aetna, WellCare Health, and United Health Group. So you know he knows his way around healthcare. Erhardt is a dedicated champion of technology and innovation in long-term care. He's also one of the highest rated CEOs in the country by Glassdoor, ranking number 20 in 2019 based on employee reviews. Other recognitions and distinctions include his receiving the Joy Wheeler Leadership Award by Medicaid Health Plans of America in 2018, and he currently serves on the board of AHIP, America's Health Insurance Plans. Welcome, Erhardt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Just a reminder that this podcast series is sponsored by United Church Homes, Ruth Frost Parker Center for Abundant Aging. To learn more about the center, visit www.unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. So, Erhardt, as we get into this, you have such a distinctive career in healthcare payer space. What drives your passion here?
Well, it's really a privilege. First of all, a privilege to be here, but also the opportunity to serve those who need a little extra help. And so the government-sponsored part of the payer world is what I've focused on over the last 20 or 25 years. And I often joke that one of my school buddies grew up in, he works at Nestle's now, and he gets to wake up and make chocolate bars. I get to wake up every day knowing that we're having a positive impact on the communities that we're serving, on the people that we're serving, and I get to lead a mission-oriented company that's also really focused on trying to make that impact. So it's something that it drives my passion, but I'm also very grateful to be able to do what we do.
And just to note that dark chocolate does improve our health. So I don't want to discount that all completely. Can you describe the markets in which you operate? CareSource primarily manages Medicaid programs on behalf of states. Is that right?
Yeah. So, the way that I see this, we have these larger Medicaid contracts, and then there are Medicare contracts, and then there are marketplace contracts. And then there's lots of other businesses that we're in as well. So our big Medicaid contracts are in, Ohio, Indiana, Georgia, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Michigan. But with some of the other lines of business, we're in a whole bunch of other states. But here's what's really exciting is we have a number of opportunities that we are awaiting sort of answers from on sort of how they play through. So we are expecting probably over the next several months to be adding several more Medicaid states to our portfolio. And this is a big part of who we're becoming in our mission and the differences that we're making, the innovative approaches that we're taking. And I'm excited because it's all starting to become real. So it is a very, very exciting time for CareSource.
I just want to slip something in here, Erhardt, because we assume that everyone who's listening actually knows what Medicaid is. Can you just give a brief description of when we're talking about Medicaid, who are we talking about serving?
That is a wonderful, wonderful question, and frankly, not that simple to answer. So in the United States, Medicaid serves the traditional Medicaid are lower income folks and people that have a disability or aged at some point. So Medicaid serves a number of different populations, in the U.S. Like I said, it's probably around $700 billion. It's a very big program. People a lot of times will get it confused with Medicare. And Medicare is primarily focused on folks that are 65 or older. So there can be someone who's on Medicare, 65 or older, but they may also have some type of a disability. So they may also qualify for Medicaid too. Hopefully
Thank
that
you.
helps.
That helps immensely. And what brought that to mind is several years ago, we welcomed a new individual who had been elected to the Ohio State Legislature to introduce him to our community. And this was post the time when the voting had happened for the state budget, and we were having lunch. And all of a sudden, it occurred to me that this elected official who had just voted on a state budget did not know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, and he was not able to understand what we were talking about. So,
Good
thank
call.
you for helping. Thank you for helping to share that. So, in the mix of that, we've got Medicare, we've got Medicaid, and then we also have this other word that starts with an M that you're not a stranger to at all, and that is managed care. So do you want to explain managed care and how this is a holistic model of care and why you're such a fan of it?
Yeah, so here's what managed care, I'm going to take those separately. Here's what managed care means to me. The opposite of managed care is what's called fee for service. So in a fee for service world, you kind of go out, you're on your own, and you go to doctors, and there's really very little coordination between your primary care provider and your specialist and the drugs that maybe both of them have prescribed. You're sort of just on your own, right? In a managed care environment, there is a much higher level of coordination between the different types of care that you may require. So personally, I would only be in a managed care environment because I think having those elements of coordination is important. Think of drugs, right? You don't want one doctor prescribing something that another doctor or she may prescribe something different, and the two sometimes don't get along. It happens quite often, actually. But in a managed care environment, there's a lot of mechanisms to sort of help avoid those types of situations from happening. And then so within managed care, there's then the concept of holistic care, right? And this is something that an organization like CareSource, with our heritage and sort of our philosophy, has been very focused on for a while. And so in short, holistic care is recognizing that we've got to address the whole person in order to be able to help someone achieve their greatest level of health. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're worried about having a roof over your head, very difficult to focus on getting a preventative screening that might find something that you'll be very thankful that you got ahead of, right? If you're wondering where your next meal is coming from, you're going to have a hard time focusing on making sure that you're going to your primary care provider. Behavioral health is something that is a very big conversation nowadays. And if you have some challenges around behavioral health, sometimes linked to substance use disorder, very difficult, right, for you to focus on getting the care or the preventative care that you might require. And if you don't address those, as we all know, then that preventative issue may become a significant issue. And not only does it wind up costing the system a lot more resources, but it's a lower quality of life for that person and their family, which is really our primary focus. So hopefully that gives a little overview of managed care and at least for me and for CareSource, kind of what this notion of holistic care sort of means.
So, Erhardt, this just makes logical sense to me. And I also know that there are a lot of people talking about the social determinants of health, and that's what you're talking about. Housing, food, access to transportation, all of these things that aren't directly medical care. it's a no-brainer that we should be thinking about all those things together. So what do you think why is this such a difficult concept? What has limited this vision so far from really taking hold more broadly in the industry and in a country at a whole at large?
Okay, remind me again how much time we have. I'm just kidding. No, it's so important. It's such an important question. And let me answer the question, but I'm going to focus maybe a little bit different. We this is part of my frustration and part of our partnership and what we're doing is for so long I challenge, and this is going to sound like a criticism, and it's really not meant to be. We have, we've talked about the recognition of the importance of things like social determinants and all of those elements under that. But have we really done anything about it? And so when I took over leadership of CareSource has a rich history of actually already doing something about this. And that's part of what I wanted to accentuate and to bring forth is to say, all right, and there are many examples of this that I have the privilege of getting to work on. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's actually try to take what we've been talking about for a long time and not actually doing anything about it, and let's do something about it. Let's start bringing the elements of social determinants in with the elements of the provider world, right? With the elements of the payer world. Let's start bringing all of that together. We all know that there's value to be created. We all know that for the lives of the families and the people that we serve, there is great benefit there about bringing these elements together. But no one's really done it. And so it's one of the many reasons I'm excited to be a part of CareSource and to be partnered with amazing folks like United Church Homes, because we're doing something about it. And that is groundbreaking. You might say it's unfortunate that in 2024, we're finally breaking ground on something we've been talking about for 15 years. But hey, better late than never. And we're super excited about where we're going.
Yeah. So just to in full disclosure and explain a little bit more to our listeners, Radiant Alliance, which is an organization which came together last year, which is United Church Homes and Meta Healthcare. United Church Homes is a provider for 108 years. We have been providing care and accompanying folks who are in later life and to their various needs. And we are entering into an agreement with CareSource, Payor. And this is a subject to appropriate approvals and closing conditions at the time that we're recording this. But we anticipate that Radiant Alliance will become an affiliate of CareSource. So Radiant Alliance continues a managed clinical care model and a non-clinical social determinant support model to help achieve the holistic model that you're speaking of. So better late than never. Here we go. Even as we're waiting a final approval, we're already making steps together. What are your hopes for this relationship?
And the relationship, even as it stands today, this is going to be a tremendous fit between all of the different organizations. But let me back up and go higher, a little bit higher level here. I, in my heart of hearts, believe that it's our moral obligation for us. We see it. We know how to challenge the system and to move this forward. So we got to do something about it. And what we're doing and how we're bringing this together and the different pilots that we're already working on is already starting to clearly demonstrate what I believe is the next generation of care, of holistic care. And it doesn't exist today, not even close. And so as we begin to prove this out, as we begin to drive quality, as we begin to make people's lives better, as we begin to create value, even around being able to be more efficient with our resources. Um, which again, these pilots are already starting to work, and we're already seeing it. It's going to be tremendous. The ultimate goal, right, for us to really be able to have that impact is to then start to be able to take that data and share that and making business cases that we all intuitively think or believe that is out there. So a business case of, can we combine some of the dollars that support senior housing or low-income housing with some of the dollars that support the healthcare? If we can bring that together and create value, then and demonstrate that and show the data behind it, then we start to be able to show and drive policy. And one of the wonderful things about the organizations that you had mentioned, and United Church Homes, House Hospice, and us, the mission alignment could not be cleaner. And that's one of the big, I think, elements to why this is going to work so well. But back to the mission piece. If we can make all of this work, and we will, and take it to the next generation of how we address and how we support our members, and then take that to really drive policy, the impact that we will have is going to be tremendous. And that ultimately, that longer term policy impact element is what I'm so excited about. And I applaud the bravery and the vision of some of the other leaders that I'm getting the opportunity to work together on, because this is different. And I think maybe a little less now, but a year ago, people were like, okay, we get the concept of what you're trying to do, but it's a little out there. But now that it's coming together, and now that we're seeing these pilots start to work, we're seeing quality and the value, I think they're starting to gain momentum. They're starting to have a lot of excitement. But no one's more excited than I am about this.
And I'm just going to add in here, because since you and I first talked about doing this podcast, I believe it has been publicly announced that Jennicross has also joined MediHealth, and United Church Homes and CareSource as founding partners in this relationship. But we know that we're not going to be. It's going to take more than just these four organizations going forward. A couple of things that come to mind as you're talking, Erhardt. I can remember being at a leading age meeting in Washington, D.C., probably 9 years ago. And we take a day and we go to the Hill, and we meet with legislatures and whatnot. And I was in the room where folks who were really focused on housing were talking. And then after the Hill, some years we come back and we talk about how the conversations go. And there was just such frustration in that room as we realized that we're talking about a need for more housing and for supports for housing, because we knew as providers that improves the health of our residents. But the health part comes from, it's separate from housing. And, from a governmental standpoint, those are like two separate buckets, and they don't cross at all. So when I first learned about what we were talking about with this alliance, that moment is what came to my mind and crystallized. This is a way to cross, to help bring together and understand how one affects the other pretty substantially.
And if I may.
Yes.
So much, and this is not right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just stating the facts, right? How things are funded in the government is a lot of times and this is a little bit behind the curtains, right? How things are funded often does create these separations, these fragmentation. Housing and healthcare is a wonderful example that you brought up. And again, I want to be sensitive. This is not a criticism. So somebody might say, well, what's a better way of doing it? Well, there's no perfect way of doing it, right? But that's the reality of it is they have to fund it. There are different ways of funding it. There's create some of these silos. All right. Well, that's the reality. All good. We can do something about it. Let's combine it at our level. And I think part of, if I may, right? One of the elements that I think is very, very special about this is CareSource is a nonprofit organization. And if you look at the entire landscape of what I'll call them government-sponsored payers, right? Payers that focus on Medicare, Medicaid, in the marketplace like us, there's really no mid-sized organization like us. There are a handful of big publicly traded companies. Nothing wrong with that, right? All good. And then there's probably 65 or 70 smaller state-specific or county-specific organizations, and many of those are nonprofit. But sort of a multi-state, truly independent organization that focuses on government programs, there's no one else in the country like CareSource. And being nonprofit without having so we're big enough, right, to invest in innovation and people and partnerships, unique partnerships, but we don't have the financial requirements. We're not focused on maximizing shareholder return. We're not focused on having to submit quarterly analyst calls and those types of things. So without the financial requirements and with the notion that we're probably one of the best running operating organizations in the country. So we run as well or better than the nationals, but we don't have the same financial requirements. If you kind of do that simple math, that releases resources that we can then take these resources and we can start to do some very, very innovative things that others can't or won't. And that includes bringing together the housing aspects and the provider aspects and the payer aspects all in the one. Now, if we were in a pure for-profit world, all three of those organizations would have to earn their own quote unquote margin, right? Profit margin for their own respective shareholders. And again, nothing wrong with this. That's, it's the way our system's built. I get it. But we don't have to do that. Yeah, we do need to make a little bit more money than we spend, obviously. But it's not about maximizing. That's not about, oh, I got to make mine and you got to go make yours and you got to make yours. And then the whole model sort of breaks down. We're here to say, all right, we know that we can create value and innovation. We know that we can make people's lives better by coming together. We'll figure out the money piece, right, later. Let's focus on our mission. Let's focus on making a difference right now. And that's one of the elements that I'm super grateful, right, to be able to lead an organization that is able to think that way. And I'm grateful to be able to join with other organizations who are also thinking that way. That's a huge differentiator that doesn't really exist in the marketplace, and a big part of why this is groundbreaking, why this is new, why this hasn't easily been done before.
And I think that's the superpower of being a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, Erhardt, until you were introduced to us at United Church Homes. Had no idea that an organization like CareSource, the size that you are, was a payor was nonprofit. I didn't know you existed. I didn't, and maybe to other people who are listening, this is a completely new concept as well. But yeah, I think all of those things, it ultimately comes down to mission, and that's what I've been really impressed with as I've gotten to know your organization. So let's come back and talk about housing a little bit. We know that when people have good, stable housing, their healthcare picture dramatically improves. But traditionally, those have been in their own silos. So what is it that you're doing to help cross between those, to take down those silos that exist as they exist in the government sphere? But what are you doing at CareSource to help break down those silos from where you are situated in this matrix?
Well, we're doing it together, right? And there's some of the obvious stuff, right, where we're able to sort of engage and work with, we call them members, but with the lens of or through or using, right, some of the housing elements that United Church has. So we coordinate the communication and getting to be able to talk a little bit more with some of the members and all that type of stuff. And that's incredibly helpful. But we were talking a lot about some of the financial aspects. Let's talk about the financial aspects for a second. So if hypothetically, right, and this is kind of some of the stuff obviously that we're doing, if the housing management, the administration in the housing, can have some of these conversations with some of our members, and if the housing folks can say, hey, Jane Doe or John Doe, like wonderful CareSource member, can we help you, right, to get access to care? Can we begin to coordinate some of the things that are barriers to you getting care, like transportation? Can we make an introduction to the CareSource care manager that can help to weave together some of these different types of care for someone maybe that has some complex needs? Think of the value, right, that creates. And so a lot of times a company like CareSource is paid like a single dollar amount, and then we have to go out and we, for lack of a better term, sort of hire different types of providers, we call them, to support these members. Well, if housing, and this is the issue, right, where traditionally like these have been totally split. Well, hey, if the housing folks can create a lot of value through what I just talked about, right? Somebody's having a tough time and they're bouncing in and out of the emergency room. I mean, that costs a lot of money, and it's not good for the member to be going back and forth to the hospital. What if the housing administration can engage that member and get them the right care proactively and stop that from happening? That's not crazy. That's definitely possible. But then the housing people will have created a lot of value. Well, now because we sort of oversee that, we get that single sort of dollar amount. Hey, if you're creating value in the housing part, well, let's give you some of that money, right, to be able to do it. And then when we talk about crossing the dollars between the housing and the healthcare, that's what I'm talking about. Is if the housing creates value, like that example, and there's a million different examples like this, well, let's invest money back into that. And that sounds so simple, but it's unfortunately groundbreaking in our industry. No one's done this, at least to my knowledge. So and this is just the basic stuff, right? When we start using technology and different ways of monitoring, like we can take all of this really to the next step and create these partnerships, the value and the increased quality of life for members. It's a whole different ballgame that we're talking about. But these are a couple of real simple examples, I think, that hopefully can demonstrate to folks that, how coming together is going to be really good for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So housing and healthcare. Where is some of the other exciting points on the horizon that are dancing in your imagination about where this all might lead us?
Well, the piece, two things that I'll bring up. So one is, let's play forward a little bit, right? Everyone, I think this is relevant to this conversation, of course. Our population generally is aging. And we know all the statistics around typically someone consumes the lion's share of their entire life's healthcare spend, right, in the last year or two. But no one wants to be moving around into and out of hospitals and post-acute. If we can create and start to bring more of the support to their homes, I think that's going to just be a tremendous opportunity to better utilize resources, but again, focusing on increasing the quality of life for these members and their families. And so another big focus to bringing the provider aspects together with the housing and the payer piece is to really starting to build out the ability for our members to age in place and do it in a productive, abundant fashion. That's super exciting, right? The other element that comes to mind, and I can go on and on and on, is if you think about someone who's aging and they're starting to maybe get a couple of chronic conditions and they're needing a little more support and things are getting a little more complex. If from a health plan perspective, just thinking about the health plan perspective, we do have a process where we have care management, care managers, right? People that might go out and support our members. And then there's different assessments, and we have a lot of data and information about our members that maybe we can sort of help with. But it's a very static process. And people's lives aren't static. People's lives are very dynamic. Things are changing, right? As we begin to bring the provider aspects together with the housing aspects together with the payer aspects, not only are we able to more holistically care for the member, but we're able to start to get a wider view of data for that member. And then we can begin to start taking what is a static process today that doesn't match the lives of our members, and we can start to make that dynamic. And if we can start to make that dynamic, we have lots of predictive analytics in our engines and our data platforms, and we've done lots of cool data and technology stuff. But what is it? So what, right? Well, if as we bring these data elements together, we can start to make it more dynamic, and then we can start to really understand, almost begin to predict what each person's needs are based on their specific situation, based on their specific needs right now. And that's not the way that the whole healthcare system is built. The way the healthcare system is built today is by cohorts. You have diabetes, therefore you must need X, Y, and Z, just like every other person that has diabetes. Well, we all know that's not true. If you're stable and you've got everything sort of working really well, you might not need any extra help. But if you're not stable, you're going to need a lot of extra help. So grouping those two people in the same cohort, if you will, is not the right approach. But we don't really have the data to be able to separate that. Well, we do now. And as we come together, like we're coming together, that ability gets even more powerful. All of this goes into the next generation of care is becoming that we are driving. Got a little technical there.
No, it's all very exciting. Another element to this, which we haven't specifically talked about, that is obviously top of mind for me, has to do with the spiritual component of the social determinants of health. And there are studies that show that when individuals have done their thinking about end of life, about what their desire is, what they want to have happen, when they've had those conversations with their family members, that those individuals, those costs, exorbitant costs that you talked about that often happen in the last year of life, are significantly less. They go to the emergency room less often, and their quality of life is better. They aren't as in much pain because they aren't just in the curative wheel of healthcare, and that everyone understands, okay, we're not going to do that test because it really doesn't matter the outcome of that test. We know that the end of life is coming. And so, that's just one illustration about how paying attention to again, the holistic, which includes our understanding of our connection to what's greater than ourselves, to our family, to the larger community, have effects on how much we're spending on healthcare as well as quality of life. So yeah.
Absolutely. The spiritual aspects in all of this, it's tremendously beneficial. It's very, very important. And we see it and we embrace it as well. And so we certainly recognize in this process the faith of how all this unwinds and the different processes. And uh, it really is a part of that whole person care. It's really a part of the entire picture. Frankly, a part of, I think, what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Okay. I'm aware of the time, and we have 3 questions that we have to ask you because we ask them of everyone. So, but before we do that, do you want to share how listeners can find out about you or CareSource?
CareSource, we got our websites and we're all over social media, and so pretty fortunately or unfortunately, pretty easy to find out about me as well, right? Got a lot of information on LinkedIn, Erhardt Preitauer, and as you might imagine, there are not a lot of Erhardt Preitauers out there, so you'll find me pretty quickly, and through that you can find a lot about CareSource, and I hope people will stop and at least look at. I'm less interesting, but check out a little bit about some of what CareSource is up to and some of our programs, and we're very proud of our community involvement as well. So again, I hope people take a second and go check it out.
Okay. Question number 1. When you think about how you have aged, what do you think has changed about you or grown with you that you really like about yourself at this age?
I seem to not quite get so excited about things, and not in a bad way. I think in a good way. A little calmer, hopefully, dare I say, use the word wisdom. But, sometimes we get into tough situations. And when you're 25, you get a little frazzled. And then I just turned 50, by the way. And then when you're a little older, double the age, then you kind of go, all right, this too shall pass. And as long as we're doing the right things and we're sticking to our values and we're leaning on our faith, we'll be just fine. So I think that's a good thing, especially in the world that we all live in, with lots of opportunity for lots of distraction out there. You can easily get wound up in stuff that really doesn't matter or things that you can't control. So I think that's really helpful.
Excellent. Excellent. And thank you for being honest and being bolder and claiming your age, because that is something that most in this culture are not able to do. So thanks for setting that example. Now for question number 2, what has surprised you most as you have aged?
Part of why I bring that up, because I've had a couple of little issues with my right knee over the years and growing up and all this other stuff, and so, but I've never had an issue with my left knee ever. Literally, not within 24 hours after my 50th birthday, I took a funny step off of a stair, and then my left knee like went crazy for a little while. I was like, "Are you?" Everybody says like the whole 50 thing. There's no way that's true. That's crazy. And then so it just like on my birthday, right? I get this little issue. I was like, okay, I got to really start making sure I'm focusing on my health as well. I talk about being balanced. I talk about holistic care. We all work really hard on that. But for all the folks out there that are passionate and working super duper hard to serve all their members, it's a reminder that we all need to make sure we carve out just a little bit of time to take care of ourselves too. And so turning 50 is sort of put that right in my face.
Absolutely. And the good news is at 50, you're on the upward swing of the happiness curve. What the stats show is that life contentment just continues. We can continue to feel better. And the other thing is, the next 2 decades are two of the most creative decades in life. And actually 60 to 70 is most creative, 70 to 80 is second, and 50 to 60 is third. So look out, world. Given everything you've done up to this age, just wait for the next 3 decades from
Well, and
Erhardt.
I could not be more excited, right, to get to work with amazing people and to do really great things. So I'm with you. Let's do it.
Okay, exactly. So, last question. Is there someone you've met or who's been in your life that has set an example for you about aging? Someone that inspires you to age abundantly? Someone that you look at and say, when I'm their age, I want to be like.
I've actually thought a lot about this, and I'm going to give like what probably looks like a very easy cop out answer. But my dad, and he's in his mid 80s, and he's super active, and he's still jumping out of backs of trucks, and they're very super active in every way. Both of my parents are, and I don't think he's aged. He looks the same like 15 years ago than he does today. And so, brought all the pieces back he's brought all the pieces together that we talk about in the holistic care. I'm sure some good genetics probably done hurt in this. So hopefully I've got them. Well, got some of them anyway. But yeah, so that's when I thought about this question a little bit, and I just keep coming to him. I think he's done a good job, and he has a lot of fun too, which I think is an important part of what we're doing. We got to laugh and blow off a little steam here and there.
Exactly. Well, and we all need those people to help influence us to age abundantly. We call them our abundant aging influencers. And there is nothing wrong with claiming a parent or a grandparent or other folks that we're related to. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of The Art of Aging, part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. We want to hear from you. What's changed about you as you've aged that you love? What has surprised you most? And how do you define abundant aging, and who influences your process to age abundantly? You can leave your responses at www.abundantagingpodcast.com. You can also submit feedback when you visit the Parker Center on the web at www.unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center/. Thank you, Erhardt, for engaging in this conversation. It's always lovely to learn from you and to hear from you, and we're just so appreciative of the opportunity that we have at United Church Homes to continue to work with you.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for the amazing work that you do, and look forward to talking again.
Absolutely. Blessings.